This is the Daily Items One-on-One. Our guest today is Andrew Miller, the Executive Director of the Susquehanna River Valley Visitors Bureau, interviewed by Eric Scicchitano.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Items One-on-One. My name is Eric Scicchitano. I'm a reporter at the newspaper. And today we're visiting Andrew Miller. He's the Executive Director of the Susquehanna River Valley Visitors Bureau. Andrew, thanks for having us out here today.
Sure, thanks for coming. Thanks.
This is a road game for us, but I don't know that we do a whole lot of traveling for these, so I like the environment.
Well, good. Welcome to our visitor center.
Yeah, thank you very much. So let me throw it right into a lighthearted subject.
Okay.
The pandemic.
There we go.
We know the mask mandate is gone for Pennsylvania.
Yes.
That ended on Monday. So all the restrictions are lifted. Obviously, restaurants, hotels, tourist attractions were hit hard throughout. How is the economic recovery progressing with respect to tourism here in the Susquehanna Valley?
You know, it's been really interesting. Last year, as soon as the pandemic hit, I was in, webinar. Oh my God, it was webinars every day trying to learn how the pandemic was going to impact the tourism industry because all the indicators were it was just going to be, decimating.
Yeah.
And I attended a webinar in the first week that was held by Temple University. And ironically, it was music to my ear. They said that smaller destinations in central rural Pennsylvania would probably fare better than others because more open spaces, less populated. And that because we weren't necessarily a convention center city or anything like that, that we wouldn't require that revenue in order to stay afloat.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it's been rough. It's been a roller coaster ride, especially with the second wave coming and not quite sure what to do and, trying really to help out our restaurants and our lodging that got hit the hardest.
Right.
It's been a roller coaster ride, but indicators right now are that there's a positive, optimistic recovery that's going on. The first half of this year was really in a limbo. I think people weren't quite sure what to do, what the vaccination rollout was going to be, where we were going to see another wave, what was going to happen now that we were getting into what, we were hit at the beginning of spring of 2020 with the tourism season. What was 2021 going to look like?
And what did we lose right at the top of that? We lost the PIAA swimming?
Yeah, literally it was halfway through PIAA. And then you're talking about, all the university events from graduation to commencement to alumni.
Little League World Series.
A Little League World Series. You had the amusement parks, that Knoebels opened so late last year.
And these are things that are open air, but because I guess it's, more condensed.
Yeah, I mean, thick as spyglass, in all the concerts. And I do a presentation and I talk about how little things can even impact tourism. For instance, let's say there was an environmental issue in the river. That would impact fishing. That would impact all the water sports. If there was a fire, that could impact it. If there was a big motor vehicle accident and roads were compromised, anything like that. I never in a million years would have thought a pandemic, but it's a prime example that brought everything to a shutdown, last year because people just didn't know what to do. And people weren't traveling, so they didn't want to stay at a hotel. They didn't know whether or not the hotels were going to be clean enough for them, or anywhere to stay.
Sure.
And then, we're sheltering from home. They couldn't travel anyhow. So it really was how, as a visitors bureau that has over 300 members, we really were trying to figure out how can we help our members stay afloat.
Right.
And so, we immediately reached out to all of them. How are you open for business? What are you doing? How can we help? And a lot of it, especially for restaurants and breweries and wineries were, pickup, delivery, drive-by, all of that. And we wanted to be an expert, so we needed to stay on top of everything that was going on in the industry statewide and nationwide in order to provide them with the most up-to-date information. So the constant communication with our members was nonstop. And one of the first things we did within a week was create a COVID page on our website and then immediately reached out to find out who was open for business and what their hours were. And we were updating that all the time. So people could see that they were open for business and that they needed to be a good neighbor and a good resident and a good supporter of small businesses and try their best to visit them.
Well, let's fast forward the recovery. How is it progressing? Like where are you seeing a lot of the rebound?
The first area that rebounded, even in 2020, was outdoor recreation through the roof because people felt that it was going to be safest. All right. So you had people that were, going to the state parks, going to the forests. The three biggest things that the governor opened up last year: fishing, campgrounds, and golfing. And so the minute that that was announced, we had that as our landing page photos, and they started the whole outdoor recreation buzz, shall we say.
Right.
And we found out that state parks and state forests had record number of attendees, to the point where they no longer were promoting that they were open because they couldn't handle anymore.
Yeah.
Campgrounds were booked. Everybody was booked. People were going out and trying to buy outdoor rec toys. You couldn't get bikes or kayaks or ATVs last year at a certain point because they were all sold out.
You even had a hard time getting those things serviced.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So what we've seen is the trend of outdoor rec increasing. That really has stayed the same, if not even gotten higher, because now all these toys haven't been used yet. So we believed that what was going to happen in 21, once the weather warmed up, is that you were going to see this happening. And sure enough, we did. And in talking to our campground members, the minute that they were open for reservations, they received huge amount of reservations for the summer, and most are booked, if not already sold out, for the rest of the summer. So one of the areas is outdoor recreation. So we're seeing kayaking and paddling and cycling and camping and hiking and everything outdoor recreation based really increasing. The rest is a little slower. What we found at the beginning of the year were the annual events, the Market Street festivals, all of the events that all of our hometowns have,
Right.
that are beloved by the people who live here, and that people come to visit on an annual basis. And there was this hesitance about whether or not they could open or not. What we saw is, as we got closer to April and May, there seemed to be more confidence, and we've been pleasantly surprised at the number of annual events, pretty much from summer on, that have been brought back. So we're seeing that bounce back. We're seeing that outdoor recreation is taking off. We're seeing our attractions open up slowly but surely, and right now they're pretty much all open. What we're seeing with lodging is that has definitely changed in terms of some that basically had a strong weekend leisure business is now having a strong weekday business.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing is that the hotels are pleasantly surprised that they are getting really close to the 2019 numbers. And I looked at some stats today, and they're saying that overall in Pennsylvania, hotel occupancy is only down about 10% from 2019, which is surprising considering we thought recovery was going to take much longer. I'm very cautiously optimistic about the recovery. My guess is that probably by the time we see 2022 happen, the tourism season, that it's going to be a pleasant surprise, if not record-breaking from 2019. Because by then, people feel safer. They'll have all of their toys that they want to use. They'll be able to have access to all of it. And if there's any cautious or hesitance this year, it'll be realized next year. But this year's going really well.
You do deep analysis of the role of tourism in the local economy. I think depending on where you're from and
Right.
what your lifestyle is, you might not recognize how important tourism is in the Susquehanna Valley. Give me a feel for what kind of segment of the economy that tourism dominates.
It's a surprising number. And when I go out and talk to people, I usually see, very surprised looks on their faces. Number one, I don't think that people who live here or maybe have businesses really think of us as a tourism destination. I lived in Washington, and I was a resident in Washington, and the only time I went to see attractions when people would come to visit and drag me out. And there I was with museums. It was crazy. But I think there's a certain I don't want to say indifference, but you get used to it on a day-to-day basis, and it's kind of a little bit invisible to you.
It becomes the background, right?
It is. You see the sign for the museum or the Indian massacre, and you're kind of like, okay, yeah, but you never really think about it. And my job really is to think about it, and what does that mean? And what resonates the most is when you look at visitor spending in the Tri-County area. Now, the most recent report is from 2019 that the state does, and I'll get the 2020 probably in February of next year, and that'll be, when we talk a year from now, we'll really see what the numbers were,
right,
basically because of the pandemic. But in 2019, visitor spending in the Tri-County area was $400 million.
Wow.
So if you had any industry, let's say it was a plant, and it was bringing in $400 million in revenue in the Tri-County area every year, you would sit back and say, that's a really good industry to have in the area. We can't lose that. That really has a huge impact on local and state taxes and helping out small businesses, and everything you can think of, a positive trickle-down impact. But it's really hard sometimes because tourism really is an experience, and you have tourism businesses, but it's not one-stop shopping. Mm-hmm. So if you were to take that $400 million out of the Tri-County area economy, that would have a negative difference for all of us. And a lot of businesses don't necessarily ask, "Hey, where are you from?" when they walk in. And I think you'd be surprised the number of people that are from outside the area. Right. One of the things that when I moved back in the area in 2000 that I noticed was all of the Pennsylvania license plates. Now when I'm at a stop sign, especially this time of year, I can see more license plates from out of state than Pennsylvania. And I think because there's a lot to do here and you can do it at your own pace, that a lot of people love to come here, either for a quick weekend, maybe post-pandemic to visit friends and family that they've missed, but also because it's safe. So tourism really is an economic driver in the area. And we've been working with our local politicians and with our members to let them know that we felt that tourism was going to be one of the lead industries that help with the economic recovery from 2020.
And before I forget to ask, and we're approaching a halfway point.
Okay.
Are there aspects to the local tourism industry that were so badly damaged by the pandemic that they might not recover?
You know, we've been keeping good communication with our members. I am not aware of any of our member businesses that went under because of COVID. Were they negatively impacted? Absolutely. Are there some that are still struggling? Yes. The biggest challenge right now to the hospitality industry is getting employees. What we're seeing is business owners that are ready to go back, to 100% full steam ahead, but they can't get the staff. That right now is the biggest, impediment to being as close to normal as they could be.
Have your members told you, where are their staff? Are they on unemployment? Have they found different work? Have they readjusted their lifestyle and maybe they don't want to go back to work?
I think the answer is yes to all of the above. I definitely think that, unemployment and the benefits that currently exist are making, definitely have a part in it. I think some of them have gotten used to living in this pandemic role and might be a little hesitant to being back in the public sector. I think you have people that are parents, that their top priority is their children and going to school and all of that are really trying to view this summer maybe as a transitional summer. What is it that I want to do and how do I want to get back into the workforce? And I think that a lot of people are dealing with the transition from 2020 into post-COVID world a little bit differently. I think there's a little bit of hesitation about it all.
Right.
And I'm hoping that what happens is by the end of the summer, beginning of fall, that the waiting period is over and people feel more confident about working in the hospitality industry. I know that some hotels, because they can't get enough, hotel cleaning staff, have had to hire outside third-party agencies to come into the area to clean because they can't find anybody locally to hire.
And school districts are kind of looking at the same thing for custodial work.
Yeah.
And on that note, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
And we'll be right back with Andrew Miller. Welcome back. My name is Eric Scicchitano. We're here today with Andrew Miller, the Executive Director of the Susquehanna River Valley Visitors Bureau.
Thanks.
So
it's a mouthful.
We're talking tourism. What are some hidden gems worth visiting, even for locals? Like, what are some hidden gems that locals and out-of-town tourists might both find?
I'm thrilled that, with my job, I have the ability to attract both of those demographics. In being a visitors bureau that represents Snyder, Northumberland, Union County, the great thing about that is you can be a resident and still travel an hour and basically,
Sure.
have your own staycation and your own little weekend trip and still stay within the Tri-County area. And one of the things that we've always been advocates for is encouraging residents to be backyard tourists in the communities around them. Number one, it's cheap. Number one, you can either do a day trip or a weekend trip. And you don't have to travel that far. You don't have to go through TSA. You don't have to worry about passports or restrictions.
Right.
And my guess is that there's a lot of people in the area that probably have not discovered a lot of the great stuff that's in their own backyard. And one of the things that I found out that usually what residents like, tourists like. And sometimes, as I said earlier, might be a little indifferent what is in your own backyard. And it's going to be hard for me to limit it because, working in a Tri-County area, I think they're all gems.
Sure.
And at every turn, there is a treasure truly to be had. I would encourage people that live in the area to take a deep breath and choose 2021 to be the year of really exploring and discovering what's in your own backyard. I know you're going to be really pleasantly surprised. You will see things through a new eye. I think there'll be a new sense of pride about your own backyard. I would encourage everyone to get out and support the hospitality industry by going to the restaurants that have really great and unique food in your own backyard. Nothing against the chains or the franchises, but I would say support your local businesses. Go to your restaurants, find your favorite food, recommend it to friends. A lot of people don't realize that we have great, you can see wild animals in the Susquehanna River Valley. You can go to Lake Tobias. You can go to Clyde Peeling's Reptile Land. You can go to T&D's. And if you can go at the right time, you can check out their bird aviary. That is amazing. Now, if you have a fear of birds, you're not going to want to go. But if you love birds, they're all around you. You'll be standing in a small group of friends and talking, and it's not unusual to have a parakeet or three land on your head.
And on that same theme, I've discovered maybe about a year ago Green Horse Farm, which is what is it, Dornsife area, something past Trevorton. You have to look it up, Google it. But it's called Green Horse Farm. It's like a petting zoo, and it's a little smaller. I feel like it's not as crowded. It's a little easier to get in and out of. I enjoyed that.
Oh, I'm loving that. And that's a great example, too. Yeah. It is all those little treasures. The best thing I would say is contact us, and ask for our guide, and we'll be happy to, send you the guide to look for those treasures, or to check out our online calendar event at visitcentralpa.org. But ask your friends what they've enjoyed. But between restaurants and the animals and attractions, and also your histories, historical societies and museums, they've taken a really big hit. I firmly believe that you don't know who you are until you know where you've been, and I can guarantee people that the history of the area will actually surprise them, and once again, really make them feel proud. So visit your historical sites, your museums, your restaurants. Look for attractions that you haven't seen before and scratch your head like, what are they? And check out the animals in the area. I still find it great to have had a lion look me in the eye and roar at me and say it happened right here in my own backyard. I think that's cool.
And hidden gems, I guess you could throw the craft brewing industry into that category. We have some very popular ones, and we have some that are probably under the radar. Yeah. How important is local craft brew to the local tourism?
Well, about 5 years ago, craft brewing was really starting to poke through in the tourism industry. And there was a big buzzword on it. And we originally had a conversation with about 5 Visitors Bureau, because there wasn't a big inventory at the time, about doing a big trail. And at the time, I think there were only 2 breweries in my backyard. And now, oh my God, 5 years later, we're part of the River Rat Brew Trail with the Columbia Montour Visitors Bureau. We have about 13 breweries, and I think 11 of them are mine. And so they have just popped up. And look, we got Pine Knotters, over in Northumberland that just won the People's Choice Award, for the fan favorite brewery of Pennsylvania. And then we have Rusty Rail, that is the largest brewery. And what these breweries are doing is making great craft beer. And what I love about all of them is that everyone is a little bit different, and they play really well together, and they do, collab beers and brews very, very, very often. But you'll find a unique brew in every single one of them. And they have understand the impact of tourism on them, because they're turning themselves into destinations. You have Rusty Rail that now has overnight rooms and is doing weddings and banquets, and you have the majority of them too that are having great local music that is coming by on a regular basis. I think all of our breweries are having local musicians, which is great for the local music scene, which is exploding. And then also what I love is the collaboration between the brewers and the local ag business. So they'll be using local ingredients, working with local farmers. So it truly is distinct to the
And not all of them have kitchens, so they incorporate local food truck owners as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, because what happened in COVID is forced people to think outside the box, but what we're seeing is best practices that are being embraced, especially by the breweries. So for instance, the requirement was that you could not have, alcohol without food. Yeah. So they had to really think creatively. And I love Thad Benner with Eclipse over in Sunbury said it basically forced the brewers to be grocery stores, which I thought was interesting. So you had to have food with, beer. And so you saw them collaborate with local food trucks, and then start turning food trucks coming over into an event. Right. And the majority of them are still having food trucks stop by, because it alleviates them of having that whole kitchen response, but creates a great fan base. And it's a win-win between the food truck and the brewer. And I don't know if people know this, Pennsylvania is in the top 3. It might be number 2 in the production of craft brew in the U.S. It is amazing the amount of craft beer that is generated and made right here in Pennsylvania, and to be part of that is huge. I'm only seeing the brewing industry, which eventually will get into more distilling locally, only ever growing and expanding.
And we talked about hidden gems. The AOAA out in Cole Township is not a hidden gem. But
no longer.
You sure could get lost, like across, 8,000 acres?
8,000 acres. It's amazing. I remember years ago when I went to a focus group about having a discussion about the Anthracite Outdoor Adventure area, and there was a lot of head scratching and what if, and they had hired a company outside of Pittsburgh, and I interviewed for them about 2 hours about the tourism aspect of AOAA, and I remember at the time thinking, if this takes off, this will be a game changer for the area. And I'm so glad that we've realized, and AOAA still has not achieved, everything that it's possible, and which the future is bright. But what they have achieved has met and surpassed all of their goals. Outdoor recreation has been a game changer for us in the last 5 years, even pre-COVID. With 2020 happening, it's really putting us on the national stage. The Anthracite Outdoor Adventure area is having their Jeep jamborees, and they're drawing national attention. They're having people come from all over the U.S. My hope, and I know their hope too, is that it's going to be the premier ATV OHV. And as they expand, and we're having conversations with them about mountain biking and cycling tourism to take place there, you're going to see those 8,000 acres, just the amount of outdoor recreation enthusiasts that they can attract will only grow, which then makes it a prime location for outdoor rec related businesses to open up. So hopefully you'll see cycle repair shops in downtown Shamokin, and you'll see restaurants that'll have food to go for ATV and cycles to pick up.
But people also need a place to stay that way too. There's not much in the way of hotels.
Right. I know it breaks their hearts, and to have to send people 25 miles away to stay. We're hoping that the hotels that are in conversation right now and proposed to be built in downtown Shamokin happen. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. The Bureau helped fund a study with Northumberland County planning in order to see the feasibility of hotels, and I was so beyond excited that they said that they could handle 2 hotels, and I'm hoping that happens sooner than later. Watch out. You're really going to see AOAA, outdoor recreation, and Shamokin just go through a renaissance that is beyond exciting.
You mentioned like cycle shop stores. Are there other like entrepreneurial things that you've identified that just haven't popped up quite there yet?
I'd love to see more outfitters. I'd love to see more kayaks and canoes being rented. I'd love to see more tour guides so that you could come, and whether you are bringing your own kayak or bike, that you could rent it and somebody could actually, pick you up and take you somewhere.
And to be clear, we're talking now about the whole valley. You're not putting down a kayak in the AOA.
No.
You're gonna make it very far.
No, not very far. Not very far. But it would be great if you, at AOAA, for instance, let's say you had a tour guide that knew those 8,000 acres like the palm of his hand and could take you either for a hike, or you could do some primitive camping, or you could get on a cycle and do bike camping and bike packing, which is a new trend in cycling tourism. So you could have tour guides out at AOAA. You could have more outfitters for the streams, both for kayaking, paddling, and fishing. I think as we move forward, you'll see that grow. I'd love to see more people at the Isle of Kew, in the Selinsgrove area, and we don't have enough launches for kayaks and canoes, and we're always in conversation with outdoor rec segments of either towns or counties to see how we can make that happen, and with the Susquehanna Greenway Partnership. And all of the conversations are moving in that direction, and we're hoping that as we see the rail trails, right now there's actually a rail trail hopefully in development that will be the 28 miles from AOAA to Sunbury, which is very exciting. The impact that could have on both of those communities in terms of outdoor recreation is exciting. And as that all grows, hopefully we'll see a lot of smart entrepreneurs come to the area and decide to set up shop and take advantage of the outdoor rec.
Andrew, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for thinking of us.
And thank you all for watching. Take care.
Thanks for watching One on One. Be sure to tune in again for another edition.